This past year, I've had way more self-awareness of how much I people please. You see, my mom conditioned me from a kid to put other people before myself because that is how you show kindness and compassion. But in all honesty, it was more about meeting my mom's needs, and if I didn't, there was hell to pay. So I became the best people pleaser ever, because that's what scapegoats do, right? I became the one who noticed everything, fixed everything, and took responsibility for everyone's feelings, their reactions, and their problems. Heck, I got so good that I knew what someone needed before they did. But since I've noticed how emotionally and physically draining all that has been on me, I'm talking lay on the couch, brain dead, can't move, tired, I knew something had to change. So I started setting some boundaries around taking on too much. Some internal decisions that respected my needs without hurting the other person. I was not expecting the reaction I received. Some people in my family didn't like it, and they let me know in no uncertain terms. Then came the guilt, as if I'd done something wrong because someone else thought I had. Who am I to have needs? But here's the thing. I do have needs. I have a life, and I want to start living it. So why do you feel guilty when you stop people-pleasing in family relationships? Welcome to Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate. If you're done with people-pleasing, tired of repeating the same patterns, and ready to learn what healthy relationships actually look like, you're in the right place. I get it. I was there too. At 65, I started learning the things I wish I'd known decades ago, like how to see the patterns, why we keep repeating them, and how to finally treat ourselves with the respect we always deserved. Like a lighthouse, steady and strong, let's all shine a little brighter today. When you stop jumping in right away to help, pause instead of fixing other people, and don't automatically take on other family memberships' responsibilities, most people think that's the hard part. But the hard part is actually the internal chaos you experience after you set a boundary. It's the guilt. It's the second guessing. It's that voice in your head saying, maybe I should have just kept helping. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. And sometimes it's not just guilt. It's shame. Another voice that says, you're not a good enough daughter, wife, or daughter-in-law if you're not doing for others. And before you know it, you're right back doing what you've always done, not because you want to, but because it feels more painful not to. This is where people stay stuck, because you don't even see this as a pattern. You just think, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what a good person does. So you rest, you reset, and then you go right back to people-pleasing again, especially if you've been in family environments where this was expected of you, or where not looking after the other person's needs came with certain consequences. The guilt doesn't just stay in your head. It moves through you. First, you replay the situation. You question yourself, and then the urge kicks in to explain, to fix, to reach out, or undo the boundary you just set, just so you don't have to feel that discomfort anymore. And then it shows up in your body, that tight feeling in your chest, that knot in your stomach, that restless feeling that won't let you settle. And sometimes it's not just internal conflict, but how the people around you respond when you start to say no. You notice the distance, the silent treatment, little jabs, or even, you've changed. And that can make the guilt feel like proof that you're doing something wrong. But you're just doing something you've never done before. As I mentioned earlier, my mom conditioned me to look after her needs. If I didn't, there was yelling, withholding of love, or the silent treatment. As a little kid, I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew I wanted to be loved, so I learned it was my responsibility to keep Mom happy. But it didn't stop there. My mom told me I wasn't good with people, so I tried even harder. I started paying attention to everything. Reading the room, body language, tone of voice, trying to get it right. Then I got married, and the same pattern continued. Because I'd gotten so good at looking after people, I knew how to look after my husband's needs. Who wouldn't want that kind of person? But it came at a price to me. A physical price, an emotional price, and a mental price. I would have bouts of depression, exhaustion, and I would withdraw just to recover so I could go back and do the same thing all over again. This has been a pattern of mine up until recently when I finally said, enough is enough. That's when I started looking after my own needs, resting when I needed to, even though that didn't always go over well. I was done missing out on my life while everyone else was living theirs because I was exhausted. And just the other day, during some journaling, something clicked for me, which has helped me let go of other people's expectations of me I've been handling for way too long. So the question isn't how to get rid of the guilt. The question is, what do you do when guilt shows up? The first thing to understand is that guilt is not your compass. In other words, guilt is not always telling you you've done something wrong. Sometimes it's telling you you've done something different. And if you've been people-pleasing for years, doing something different is going to feel really uncomfortable. Again, that doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. It just means it's unfamiliar. The second thing is not to rush in and fix things with family. That urge to explain yourself, smooth things over, or go back and do what you've always done, that's the old pattern. That's how you've been wired to respond. But just because it feels urgent doesn't mean you have to act on it. You can feel the wave of discomfort and ride it out. The third piece, and this one has been transformative for me, is separating other people's expectations from my own. I use it when I catch myself about to do what the other person expects me to do. Just because something is expected of you doesn't mean you have to. And this is where I started using a simple mental reframe. I say to myself, that's their expectation, not mine. I'm allowed to choose what works for me, and I'm going to. Here is an example. If your spouse expects you to go to an event for the company he works for and you're exhausted from a big day, you can say to yourself, that's his expectation, not mine. I'm allowed to stay home tonight, and I'm going to. Then politely decline with no justification or explanation. That one reframe puts the expectation back where it belongs, with them, not you. And the more you use it, the easier it becomes to separate their expectations from yours and the less guilt you feel. The fourth thing is allowing people to have their reaction. Part of stopping people-pleasing is letting other people feel what they feel without stepping in to manage it. They will most likely not like the change. They will push back, make snide remarks, or give you the cold shoulder. But again, that doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means the dynamic in your relationship is changing. And finally, you have to learn to stay in your lane. What does that mean? What I've learned is to focus on myself rather than on managing the other person. Really, it's minding your own business. And that is brutally hard when you've been conditioned to people please. That pull to go back to stepping in is strong. But it's coming from the pattern of always doing for others, not from what's actually right for you now. At the end of the day, you're not learning how to get rid of guilt. You're learning how to stop letting it control you. One of the most powerful things you can do for your kids is to show them that it's okay to have your own needs. When they see you constantly putting everyone else first, saying yes to everything, and pushing through exhaustion, they don't learn what kindness is. Instead, they learn that other people's needs come before their own. When they grow up believing they have to meet everyone's expectations, they often become adults who feel guilty the minute they don't. And most importantly, when they see you pause, take a breath, or walk away calmly, you're showing them what it looks like to protect your own energy. That's how we raise kids who never have to unlearn what you're unlearning right now. Hopefully, you now understand why you feel guilty when you stop people-pleasing in your family relationships. It's because you're no longer doing what's expected, what's familiar, and what you've been conditioned to do for years. That's the part most people don't talk about. Not setting the boundary, but what it feels like after. The guilt, the second guessing, the pull to go back to your old ways. But if you keep moving forward, one small step at a time, it does get easier. You're gonna mess up. You're going to feel the guilt. You might even go back to the old pattern a time or two. That's okay. Each time you try, the guilt gets a little quieter, and the reactions from other people, those settle down too. Because you're not just changing a habit, you're changing a dynamic, and that takes time. Whether you're starting to understand yourself more clearly, working through old family dynamics, or learning to do things differently, you're building the skills that help you grow into the person you were meant to be. Listening is important, but real change happens when you use what you've learned. So choose just one life lesson from today and try it out this week. That's when things begin to shift. And if you want more life lessons like this, be sure to follow Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If this episode resonated with you, there's a link in the show notes to show your appreciation. Either way, I'm grateful for you being here. If no one has told you lately, everything will be okay. Tomorrow is a new day, and with it comes new hope. As I conclude this episode, I must state that this podcast is designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. While I bring my experience as a parent and grandparent, it's essential that you know I am not a licensed therapist. This podcast is not a substitute for professional advice from a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Got it? Awesome. Until next time, what is one thing you are grateful for?